The truth most people never confront is that their limits are self-imposed. They're not written into destiny. They're written into their thinking. From childhood, we're conditioned to believe in boundaries, what's realistic, what's acceptable, what's too ambitious. We're told to stay inside the lines, to play it safe, to follow the crowd. Over time, those invisible fences become walls in the mind, and before we even realize it, we stop reaching for what we're truly capable of. The limits we see aren't actually there. They're imagined, created by belief, reinforced by fear, and accepted as truth. When you believe in limits, you behave as if they're permanent. You hesitate when opportunity appears. You second-guess your intuition. You doubt your calling. And the worst part, you begin to build your life inside the cage of your own creation, mistaking comfort for peace and predictability for purpose. But deep down, your spirit knows there's more. Deep down, there's a voice whispering, you're capable of more than this. That whisper is the sound of your true potential trying to break free from the lies your mind has built around it. Every person who ever did something extraordinary began at the same place, with a limitation that looked immovable. They faced rejection, they faced doubt, they faced failure, but they chose to see those barriers differently. Instead of saying, I can't, they asked, how can I? Instead of retreating, they stretched. Instead of being stopped by limits, they treated them as illusions, because once you recognize that limits are created by thought, you realize that they can be destroyed by thought too. Most people wait for external proof before they believe something is possible. They want evidence, reassurance, or permission. But the ones who break through act without needing confirmation, they move forward not because the path is clear, but because they've decided it will clear. They understand that. Belief doesn't follow results. Results follow belief. What you believe internally eventually manifests externally. So when you act as if nothing is impossible, you stop responding to the world's limitations and start creating your own possibilities. Think about it. Everything that exists today was once called impossible. Flying, connecting across continents, curing diseases, reaching space. All of it was dismissed by the limited minds of the time. But someone dared to question that. Someone dared to think beyond logic, beyond reason, beyond fear. Someone saw what others couldn't see because they refused to let impossibility dictate their imagination. The same power exists in you. The same capacity to transcend limits is already present in your mind, waiting for permission to operate. Your limits will always match your level of belief. If you think small, your results will remain small. If you think average, your life will stay average. But if you dare to think beyond what seems logical, you'll start to attract opportunities that defy logic. The mind cannot distinguish between what's real and what's vividly imagined. So if you continually imagine expansion, growth, and possibility, your subconscious begins to build it as a new reality. The first construction of every dream happens not in the world, but in your mind. There's power in simply deciding that limits don't apply to you. The moment you make that decision, you rise above the energy of doubt. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop waiting for validation. You start acting like someone who already knows they're capable. That mental posture changes how you speak, how you move, how you attract. Because when you believe there are no limits, your presence becomes magnetic. People can feel that certainty in you. Fear and failure lose their grip on those who see limits as illusions. Instead of being terrified by the unknown, you start to see it as a playground of potential. You understand that every impossible thing is simply something no one has done yet. You begin to realize that you don't have to be the most talented, the most educated, or the most connected. You just have to be the most determined to believe in what others can't see. The difference between those who stay stuck and those who rise isn't circumstance, it's mindset. Two people can face the same challenge. One sees a wall, the other sees a doorway. One sees a reason to quit, the other sees a reason to grow. It's not about luck, it's about lens. When you remove the lens of limitation, everything around you expands. You stop fighting for your restrictions and start fighting for your possibilities. And once you reach that awareness, life begins to open up in ways you never thought possible. The world around you starts responding differently because you've changed internally. You stop living reactively and start creating intentionally. You become the kind of person who no longer wonders if something can happen. You start deciding how it will. That's the shift from limitation to liberation, from impossibility to inevitability. Faith is not a word to be spoken lightly. It's a principle that demands motion. So many people claim to have faith, yet they live as if the outcome depends on chance. Real faith doesn't wait for signs. It creates them. It's not sitting around hoping that something will happen. It's standing up, moving forward, and acting like it already has. When you carry faith into your actions, you're no longer operating in the realm of probability. You're operating in the realm of inevitability. Faith makes what you see inside of you stronger than what you see around you. And that power changes how you move. Action is the language of faith. When you take a step towards your goal without having everything figured out, that's faith. When you make a decision to keep going, despite fear whispering in your ear, that's faith. When you give your all to something that hasn't yet produced visible results, that's faith in motion. Words can sound convincing, but movement proves belief. Faith that doesn't move isn't faith, it's wishful thinking. The ones who truly believe act before they see, speak before they feel ready, and build before the foundation looks stable. The act of moving before certainty is the difference between dreamers and doers. Dreamers wait until the path is clear, but doers move until the path becomes clear. When you move in faith, your action sends a signal to the universe that you're ready for the next step. And it responds. Doors open that weren't even visible before you started walking. People show up who weren't in your circle until you started believing. Momentum begins to form, and what once seemed impossible starts to feel inevitable. Not because it suddenly got easier, but because your faith became louder than your doubt. Faith and fear both demand belief in something unseen, but only one produces progress. Fear paralyzes, faith propels. Fear says, what if it doesn't work? Faith says, what if it does? The only difference between stagnation and breakthrough is which voice you choose to listen to. When you feed fear with inaction, it grows stronger. But when you feed faith with movement, it multiplies. The more you act on faith, the more confident you become. Not because everything always works out, but because you prove to yourself that you can survive what doesn't. The act of faith also redefines how you see obstacles. When you're operating from fear, challenges look like stop signs. But when you're operating from faith, challenges look like detours that still lead to destiny. Faith doesn't deny the problem. It declares that the problem isn't final. You start to see difficulties not as punishment, but as preparation. Every setback becomes a setup for growth. And because faith is active, not reactive, you start making moves even in the midst of uncertainty, trusting that every step has purpose. Faith is magnetic. When you operate from it, people can sense it. It draws resources, connections, and opportunities that align with your energy. Others may not understand why you keep showing up, why you're so consistent, or why you're still believing after so many closed doors. But faith isn't about being understood. It's about being aligned. It gives you an inner certainty that doesn't require outside validation. While others are waiting for confirmation, you're already creating transformation through your obedience to belief. Acting in faith is not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about trusting that perfection is not required to begin. Too many people waste years waiting for clarity, waiting for signs, waiting for resources. But faith doesn't wait. Faith builds with what's available. It multiplies what's in your hand. The greatest moves in history were made by people who didn't have all the details, but had an unshakable conviction that the details would appear after they started walking. The lesson is simple. You don't need certainty to move. You need courage to start. When you begin to act in faith, your inner world shifts. You start carrying a different energy, one that commands attention. Your posture changes, your voice carries more conviction, and your presence becomes more intentional. That's because faith activates purpose. When you believe you're walking towards something bigger, every step feels meaningful. Even small progress feels sacred. You begin to see that what matters most is not how fast you move, but that you're moving in alignment with something greater than yourself. Faith also strengthens endurance. There will be moments where nothing seems to happen, where progress feels invisible, and where doubt tries to whisper louder than belief. But those moments are the testing ground for your faith. That's when the real work happens, when you keep acting, even when there's no visible reason to keep going. Every act of obedience in uncertainty is a declaration that your trust is stronger than your circumstances. That's how unshakable confidence is built. Not in success, but in persistence through silence. Ultimately, faith requires that you stop asking for proof and start producing evidence. Every action you take in faith becomes a seed planted in the soil of possibility. And though you may not see the harvest immediately, your consistency ensures that the roots are growing deep beneath the surface. The moment you decide to keep walking, keep building, and keep believing even when you can't yet see, that's when faith shifts from being an idea in your mind to being the power that governs your life. Every challenge that appears in your life is not there to destroy you. It's there to develop you. The tests you face are not punishments. They're proof that you're being prepared for something greater. Too often, people misinterpret difficulty as a sign to stop, when in reality, it's an invitation to grow. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. Comfort is where potential sleeps. Pressure is what awakens it. When life turns up the heat, it's not working against you, it's refining you. Every setback carries a seed of strength that you can only discover by walking through it when you begin to understand that challenges are necessary. Your entire relationship with struggle changes. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? Every delay, every disappointment, every detour holds a lesson that shapes your capacity. Nothing is wasted. Every pain has a purpose attached to it. Life's greatest teachers often show up disguised as problems, but those problems are not permanent. They're process. They're there to stretch your faith, expand your endurance, and deepen your understanding of who you really are. When you choose to see a challenge as a growth test, fear begins to lose its power. Instead of feeling defeated by what's in front of you, you start to feel empowered by what's inside of you. You realize that the situation didn't come to break you. It came to reveal you. It's through the pressure of opposition that your inner strength begins to emerge. Gold is not pure until it's refined by fire, and neither is purpose. Every trial is a refining flame, shaping your character into something that can hold the weight of your destiny. The truth is, ease never built greatness. People who live without resistance never develop resilience. If life gave you everything you wanted without any struggle, you'd never learn what you're capable of. Struggle gives you muscles, mental, emotional, and spiritual ones. It teaches you to keep moving even when you don't see results, to keep believing when the outcome looks uncertain, and to keep building when progress feels invisible. The person you become through that process is far more powerful than the one who never had to fight for anything. Challenges are divine mirrors. They reflect back to you the areas where your faith still needs strengthening. They expose the limits of your patience, the cracks in your consistency, and the gaps in your belief, but they also provide you with the opportunity to fortify those areas. Every time you respond to difficulty with discipline instead of doubt, you level up. You begin to embody the truth that nothing external has the power to control your internal state unless you give it permission. That awareness alone transforms the way you experience life. When you start viewing challenges as growth tests, you stop fearing failure. You understand that failure is not the end of the road. It's simply feedback, information that helps you adjust and evolve. The fear of failure keeps most people stuck in cycles of mediocrity. But when you embrace it as part of the process, failure loses its sting. It becomes a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. Every loss becomes a lesson that teaches you how to win with more wisdom. Next time, growth never happens in stillness. It happens when you're stretched beyond what's comfortable. Challenges pull you out of routine and force you to tap into creativity, courage, and persistence that you didn't even know you had. They make you resourceful. They sharpen your vision. They help you recognize the difference between what's essential and what's just noise. You begin to see that obstacles aren't there to block you, but to build you. They are not interruptions to your path. They are your path. When life tests you, it's asking you one question: do you still believe? It's easy to have faith when everything is working, but true growth begins when it feels like nothing is. That's when belief must become stronger than evidence. That's when you must hold your vision, even when everything around you looks opposite of it. The test of faith is not how loud you can speak it, but how firmly you can stand on it when the ground beneath you starts to shake. That's when strength is forged. The growth that comes from challenge is often invisible at first. You might not see the progress while you're in the middle of it, but something powerful is taking place beneath the surface. Endurance is being built. Confidence is being developed. Character is being refined. The struggle you face today is equipping you for the strength you'll need tomorrow. Every test is preparation for a promotion that can't come any other way. Growth doesn't announce itself with comfort. It reveals itself through resistance. The moment you stop resisting the lessons that come with challenge, your perspective shifts from frustration to empowerment. You begin to recognize that every problem carries purpose. Every battle builds resilience, and every season of pressure is a setup for progress. What once looked like chaos becomes clarity when you realize it's shaping the version of you that can handle the blessing you've been asking for. Life's tests are never there to stop you. They exist to prepare you to become unstoppable. Identity is the foundation of transformation. Every action you take, every decision you make flows from who you believe you are. The moment you begin to see yourself differently, everything in your life begins to shift. Acting as the person you want to become isn't pretending, it's positioning. It's aligning your thoughts, your behavior, and your energy with the version of yourself that already exists in potential form. When you begin to embody that identity, the world around you starts to recognize it and respond to it. You can't become something you can't first believe yourself to be. Most people spend their lives trying to change their habits without changing their identity. They say, I want to be successful, but still identify as someone who's struggling. They say, I want to be disciplined, but still speak like someone who's inconsistent. The problem isn't their effort, it's their identity. Behavior follows belief. You can't sustain an action that doesn't align with who you think you are. That's why transformation doesn't begin with doing, it begins with becoming. When you act like the person you aspire to be, you start to create a new internal narrative. You begin to talk differently. You walk differently. You approach opportunities with confidence rather than hesitation. This isn't about arrogance. It's about awareness. You start to operate with a quiet certainty that what you desire is already within reach because you've already decided it belongs to you. Every thought, every word, every action begins to move in harmony with that decision. That's how identity creates momentum. The power of identity lies in repetition. The more you act in alignment with your desired self, the more your mind begins to accept that identity as truth. It's not about faking confidence or forcing belief. It's about consistency. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, every time you speak with authority, even when you're uncertain, every time you choose discipline over distraction, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming. Over time, those small votes accumulate into transformation that feels effortless because it's now who you are. Identity doesn't just change your behavior, it changes your perception. When you believe you are capable, you start to notice opportunities you used to overlook. When you see yourself as worthy, you stop settling for less. When you believe you're chosen, you stop chasing validation. The world reflects back the image you hold of yourself. Life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you believe you deserve. So when your belief expands, your environment must adjust to match it. The old version of you will resist this process. It will whisper doubts, remind you of past failures, and try to pull you back into patterns that feel familiar. That resistance is normal. It's simply the echo of an expired identity trying to survive. Growth feels uncomfortable because you're outgrowing who you used to be. But if you can push through that tension, you'll discover that the discomfort isn't punishment. It's proof that your new identity is taking shape. Every moment of resistance is an opportunity to reinforce who you're becoming, acting as if you already are. That version of yourself builds a bridge between belief and reality. You stop waiting for evidence to feel confident and start creating evidence through your actions. Confidence isn't a personality trait, it's a result of alignment. When your thoughts, words, and behaviors all move in the same direction, self-doubt loses its power. You no longer question if you can do something. You simply do it because it feels natural to the identity you've adopted. Identity is powerful because it determines your emotional state. When you see yourself as strong, you react differently to struggle. When you see yourself as capable, you interpret failure as feedback. When you see yourself as valuable, you protect your time and energy. You stop reacting from fear and start responding from faith. The same event that once discouraged you now becomes motivation because your self-image no longer depends on external outcomes. Your identity becomes your stability. As your identity expands, your standards rise. You begin to demand more from yourself and expect more from life. The people, environments, and habits that once felt comfortable start to feel too small. You start making choices that match your new level of awareness. You set boundaries not from pride, but from purpose. You no longer chase what's beneath you because you're too focused on what's beyond you. That's the natural result of identity growth. Everything that doesn't align with your future begins to fall away. The process of becoming who you're meant to be isn't about discovering something new. It's about remembering what's already inside you. The version of you that walks in power, purpose, and confidence has always existed. It was just buried under doubt, fear, and conditioning. When you act as if nothing is impossible, you're not pretending to be someone else. You're awakening the part of you that was created to defy limits. That's how identity transforms reality, not through imitation, but through revelation of who you truly are.